Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, we are taking a look at the best non-engine within Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Now, here's the thing, we gotta put this into context, right? So, first and foremost, let's take a look at the previous tier list that I did, which is this one, which basically says, like, hey, there's a bunch of top decks right now, that being these four right here. I got a bunch of pushback for this. Now, I do think that I didn't explain myself very well in this video, specifically in regards to Cool Toon. Cool Toon should be a tier 1 deck. It has the power level to be a tier 1 deck. The problem is, it's not there in Master Duel because we still have all of the other significantly more powerful archetypes ahead of it. And it's missing some key pieces. I think if I were to represent it more like this, where it's like, oh, it's still a tier above some of the other decks, that would kind of help, right? Maybe even if I move Raziel Mitsu to this tier. It is not necessarily that Cool Toon is not a good deck. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. It's more so that all of these decks are really powerful right now, and so Cool Toon doesn't really have the ability to kind of set itself apart and be that top tier deck. Hopefully that makes some more sense, but with that in mind, keep in mind that when I'm talking about the hand traps, I'm talking about all of this. And I'm talking about what is most popular, which right now is Cool Toon. Cool Toon is extremely popular, alongside Vanquish All Canine. So, with that in mind, let's hop into this, starting off with, of course, Maxi in the Maxi tier. Maxi is busted. Let's move on. Next up, we have Ash Blossom. Obviously, Ash Blossom is an auto-include, mostly due to the fact that Maxi and the Charmies still exist, and you basically have to play outs to them. Very, very few decks can get away without playing Ash. So, for the most part, you still need it, tragically. Speaking of which, yeah, of course, we're also going to put in Fualos into the auto-include tier. All of these are basically just like, yeah, you gotta play them. It sucks. Now, moving on from that, we're just going to go down the list here. Ghost Bell, I think, is pretty situational, but it isn't bad right now. Mostly, it depends on the deck that you're playing, but it is pretty solid. Most notably, it is good in Cool Toon specifically, and there are a lot of applications for it, right? Draco Tail, Cool Toon itself, Vanquish All Canine, Yummy. There's lots of applications for it to kind of slow down decks. The problem is that it's not great. Like, it's okay in the sense that you do get to stop something, and it has applications. The problem is those applications generally don't matter. Or at least, don't always matter. Sometimes they do, but not always. Next up, we have Bystials. Bystials, I think, for the most part, are generally not worth it. Almost every deck doesn't really care right now, mostly due to the fact that the attributes aren't too applicable. I guess Yummy cares, right? That's, like, the only one that really cares. But unless you are something like Dragon Link that already has a ton of dragons, it's not really worth it. So I'm just going to say not worth it for the most part. Chaos Hunter I also think is not worth it. Not enough banishing. Crow, the thing with Crow is that it's a little bit better due to, or than, who is this? Than the Bystials, due to the fact that it can hit some of the Cool Toon cards that are in the graves and what have you, on top of the fact that it can also hit things like the Vanquish All names, and the, you know, it can hit like Lupus and what have you. So there are some more applications to it. It also is a Dark, which is more applicable for Vanquish All Canine, so that has applications as well. I think you could play it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think Droll is basically an auto-include. Almost every deck plays into Droll. Mitsurugi, Vanquish All Canine, Cool Toon, all of these, like, they can do stuff under Droll, but it's just, like, a very solid card. Gamma and its associated other cards, like Delta and, just those two, really, are decent. Not a lot of decks can make use of them. The only notable deck that really would want to play these are Cool Toon, but there are a few others, like Super Heavy Samurai, which is not really a thing, but I don't know, could be. There's a few other decks that probably would make use of it, but for the most part, we're going to put it there. Imperm, I think is, I'll put it in situational. I think Imperm is not something that you're immediately going to be like, I need to play it. I gotta play it. It's great. That's pretty much it. I think there are other options that could be useful. Okay, we're going to talk about this one and Purge and Shifter all at the same time, so we're not going to talk about those right yet. Lancia, not great. Not really worth talking about. Who is it? This guy? Skullmeister. Ghost Mourner does have some application because of the fact that Cool Tune, you can kind of negate the effects of the Cool Tunes off of the summons, right? Just like straight up preventing them. Because you don't have to target, it can be pretty nice as well, right? So that's okay. It could be applicable. You could even play it in Cool Tune as well against other Cool Tunes. It doesn't have a ton of application outside of that. Because, like, it's not going to be very good against Vanquish Hole. It's not going to be very good against Draco Tail. I guess it could be applicable against Draco Tail because you could negate the Arthalion. But in that same situation, something like Imperm or Valor would do the exact same thing. So it's not really all that much better. So that's where, in specifically Cool Tune, it could be a little bit better. Just due to the fact that it's a tuner. Nibiru, I feel like, is actually okay. It's not great. Ghost Ogre, this card is pretty good. That's all I will say. I think this card is actually really good right now. Removing bodies is very useful, just generically. But on top of that, being able to, like, pop the Yummy cards, to be fair, Yummy isn't all that popular, so it's not that big of a deal. But being able to stop, like, Yummy, being able to stop the Cool Tunes from getting those additional monsters, or specifically having the monsters on field to use as synchro material, that can be helpful, right? If they, like, normal summon Rekko and you pop it, that could be pretty good, right? So there are some applications. I don't think it's great by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think you're, if you're playing Draco Tail or something of that nature, you shouldn't necessarily be playing Ogre. But I think there are some decks like Punk that could also make use of it. So there's that. Phantasma's, yeah, Phantasma is not great. I think if we were more in a Yummy Vanquish Soul metagame, maybe it'd be worth it, right? Or if you were more likely to see some of those Link monsters. But right now, it's like, okay, Ryzeal, Mitsu, Cool Tune, Vanquish Soul Canine. Okay, there's one application. Yummy, there's another application, potentially, right? Draco Tail, Malice, I guess. Maybe you play against Malice. Malice isn't too popular, even though it is a very, very powerful deck. I don't think it's very popular. Orcust is fairly popular, so maybe Orcust. But again, the point is that there's not a lot of application for it, so I don't think it's worth it most of the time. Perulia, I think, is actually great. That's it. I just think this is a good include. Not auto-include, but fairly decent. Cherries is not worth it. Okay. Let's talk about Impulse, Purge, and Shifter. Here's the thing. With all three of these should basically automatically be included in your deck if you can play them. Impulse is also almost a build-around card. It is incredibly powerful. It stops so many things right now that it's also one of the downsides to playing something like Cool Tune, or Vanquish Soul, or Yummy even, right? Is that you don't get to play Impulse. That's how powerful this card is. That's one of the reasons as to why I think Malice is still playable, due to the fact that they still have access to Impulse, and they don't really need any other effects. They just need Darks, right? So there's that. I think this card is absolutely obscene. That being said, I would still put it in a similar tier to that of Purge and Shifter. Basically, if your deck can play it, it should be playing it. Even something like Vanquish Soul, I think, should realistically be playing Shifter at this point. You could also play another card here, Retaliating Sea. Now, Retaliating Sea is almost exclusively a card that I would suggest for Vanquish Soul, and for pretty much no one else. The only reason you would play this is because it's also an Earth. That's one of the big advantages that it has, is that, hey, you get an extra Earth target, which is pretty solid. It's not exceptional, but it's something, right? At the very least, you do have that additional target. So I would say that it is a card worth playing specifically in that deck. That being said, I don't think it's terrible in other decks. It has some applications against, like, Draco Tail, obviously. But Draco Tail has kind of fallen off in favor, right? And it's not good against Cool Tune. I'm sure someone is going to be like, actually, it has application here. And while, yes, technically speaking, it could do something. The problem is, you don't need to activate a single spell in the Cool Tune combo to do the whole line. And that's the issue. Is that this card could do absolutely nothing for you. It could be a dead card, and that is the issue with it. Theoretically, it's good, but realistically, it's not. Dogwood, not great. Vados, not great. Valor, I think, is pretty good. Not an auto-include, but definitely worth it. There's a lot of decks that are also playing 3 of this card, and the targeted effect negation is fine, similar to Imperm, but I don't think it's, like, the end-all be-all. I think having the ability to kind of slow down the opponent via either, like, the Floodgate-style effects, right? I call them Floodgates. They're not really Floodgates. They're more just lingering effects, right? I guess Shifter is a Floodgate, but, like, Droll and Fua and Maxi and stuff like that, those are pretty nice. And then just having the high-impact cards like Gamma or Impulse, I think, are very nice. Nibiru's okay. The problem with the Nibiru, unlike some of these other ones, is the fact that it requires your opponent to kind of commit. And there's a lot of decks that either have, like, Ripper on their field and just say no, or that just don't commit too much, right? It's like, oh, cool, here's Draco Tail that summons 2 guys. Nice Nibiru, right? Cool Tune also can just look at your hand and be like, okay, I just won't commit, right? Way before they even get close to the Nibiru. So there's that. However, it is kind of a good deterrent to kind of force them into a bad field, right? To kind of force them onto a worse field. So there's that. Droplet, I think, is actually... Droplet's pretty good. I think it's overall a fairly decent card. Meowls, I think, is... Yeah, Meowls, I think, is for the most part not worth it. I don't think it's worth playing. I really don't think playing any of the Draco Tail traps are even worth talking about. Sheena is almost exclusively played in Radiant Typhoon. Sheena, right? This is the card. It's She something or other. I'm fairly certain it's Sheena. This card is only played in Radiant Typhoon because it actually is the only deck that can realistically make use of it. There are potentially other decks, other wind decks. Like, maybe you could play it in Ritual Beast. I might have to test that. Maybe you could play it in Ritual Beast. Super Polymerization, this is going to sound strange. I don't think it's worth it right now. Here's the thing. Super Polymerization is 2 things. 1, it's a way to remove monsters from the field, right? Specifically in a way that your opponent can't interact with. But 2, it's very specific in what it needs to be useful, right? And right now, there's not a lot of good targets for it. It's fairly okay into something like Vanquish Soul, and it's decent into Cool Tune, but the main targets that you would want are decks that aren't really seeing a ton of play, right? Things like Malice, things like, I guess Mitsu it's pretty okay into, and I've seen a bunch of Mitsu, so maybe it's worth it. You know what? Yeah. Now that I think about it, Mitsu does show up fairly regularly. If you're playing against a bunch of Mitsu, maybe it's worth it, but it's like really bad into Cool Tune, it's really bad into Vanquish Soul. It's not great. I guess it's okay. It can be okay into Yummy, but Yummy also has one of those boards that's kind of resilient to that. Even if you were to super poly, there's not a lot of good super polymerization targets. So it's one of those cards that's like, it's kind of fallen out of favor in my mind. It used to be one of those cards that's just like, you can play it, it's great, but yeah, it's not great right now. Thrust and Talons, I think, are okay. They're not miles ahead of every other deck or card. I don't know. They're fine. I don't know what I'm talking about. I guess, no. Talents is actually almost an auto-include. I don't want to put it clear. You know what? Hold on. I'm going to make another tier. There needs to be another tier here. This tier should be just, great. That's it. Just great cards. These would be this, and there's another one I was thinking of. Droplet. Droplet? No. Imperm. Perulia. Bell. Maybe not Bell. Maybe Gamma. Something like that. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Talent is really, really good right now because of the fact that there is a ton of hand traps running around, and being able to stop that in some capacity is pretty nice, right? Things like Phimena, Izuna, the Cool Tune cards, like Cool Tune has like 10 million hand traps, right? Herald, Herald of Orange Light, right? Being able to punish that is actually very nice. I actually think that this is a underutilized card, right? I feel like there's a lot of decks that would make use of this right now. Hell, even Cool Tune might want this, simply due to the fact that there's just so many interactions running around on turn 0 that it's like, yeah, cool, I immediately get to do something. Especially because it's also at 3, so why not? Izana, okay, obviously in Vanquishal, it's great. It's great to play the K9 cards. For the most part, I don't think a K9 engine is all that worthwhile in regards to a specific deck, right? Or sorry, outside of a specific deck, right? So like K9 Archmage, that's pretty good. K9 Crystron, that's pretty good. K9 Vanquishal, that's pretty good. K9 insert X deck that is only playing the K9 Izana and Lupus, probably not worth it, right? Theoretically, it could be useful, right? The problem is that it's not actually all that great of an option as a hand trap because you don't actually really get much out of it, right? Theoretically, you could get Ripper and potentially do additional things off of that, which is why things like Vanquishal and Crystron and all of that jazz are nice to have, right? But as a hand trap engine, it's not very good, right? You're playing a brick, but unlike something like Gamma or Delta or something else of that nature, you're not just negating a thing. You have to be proactive, and right now it's not great to do that, and it plays into other hand traps like other Izanas, which is kind of silly. So for the most part, I don't think it's all that worthwhile. I don't even know why we're going to talk about that. Fissure is actually... Fissure's actually pretty good right now. Lots of cards, wants to go to the graveyard. Yummy, Vanquishal, less Vanquishal, more K9. Malice. That sounds crazy to think about, but it is true. Malice without the extra deck, or sorry, without the graveyard, just like doesn't do anything. What's the other? Cool Tune, Draco Tail, lots of applications for that. Kurikara is pretty terrible, just not really worth it. Theoretically, could be useful, right? Being able to like remove a already used monster effect, right? But there's not a ton of those where they would care, right? It's like, oh, what are you going to use it on? Like, Gulamel? Or a Spent Ripper? I don't know, kind of. There's not really a ton of applications. This would be more of like a proactive Kaiju, which I don't have Kaijus on here for some reason. Oops. If I were to say, you know, Kaijus in general, I would probably put them in situational. I think that Kaijus in general are pretty decent. Specifically things like the Lava Golems and the Sphere Modes, if you can play those, just due to the fact that being able to remove a big field is pretty nice. And there's a lot of those where people are going wide. Yummy goes wide. Draco Tail, I guess Draco Tail doesn't really care, so there's that. Mitsu. I guess if you tribute the Mitsu cards, that could be an issue, because then they just come back and search. So, maybe they're not good against Mitsu, but they are good against, like, the Ryziel stuff, right? So that's where, like, some Kaiju effects I could see being useful, but they're not great. Cosmic Cyclone, not... Double Cyclone. Double Cyclone's not great. The reason to play this would be for, Draco Tail. Just, like, being able to pop your own spell to dodge the targeted effect negation. I guess RS would also care about that in Cool Tune, but not a lot of other decks really care. Cosmic Cyclone, not great. Evenly Matched could be useful. If you're playing more of a board breaker style, it's fine. But I guess it is pretty good because the only real deck that would have an out to this is Yummy? Oh, and Mitsu. Because it's always Mitsu. It's always Mitsu. But most other decks wouldn't have a clean out to an evenly matched. So I actually think that this is a pretty good option. Yeah. Yeah. I guess... No, yeah. Called By, obviously, auto-include. Not really worth it playing this one. The Dominus cards are very situational. Specifically Spiral. Spiral, you almost exclusively want to be playing alongside songs. However, they're both very good cards, right? Being able to search out the bounce is very strong, and being able to utilize the additional effect negation and an additional search is also pretty solid. The problem with this is that it gets countered by Ash, because this card is stupid. Anyway, Judgment, not really worth it. Even if you were like a blind first style deck or something of that nature, I think the Solemns just generally aren't worth it. Obviously, if you're playing like Stun, sure. But I wouldn't even consider that necessarily situational, but more so deck specific. So, for the most part, not really worth it. Hopefully this makes sense. Yeah, I think these are some really good options here. I think Triple Tack is maybe a little underutilized because, man, can you heavily punish something like Cool Tune with that. It's like, oh, you Ash Blossom me? Cool. Away goes all of your interaction, or away goes your only starter, or something like that, right? Cool Tune is not consistent enough, nor does it have the power level of its individual hand traps to be something that isn't susceptible to Triple Tack. Now, to be fair, they do also play Imperm, so keep that in mind, but for the most part, I feel like this is probably worth it in a lot of decks. Anyway, that's going to be it. Hopefully this helped and give you a little bit more of an understanding of the metagame and where it stands. But yeah, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much appreciated. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.